Okay. Hey, how is it going? Everything good? We're here with Adilia Yip, who's a percussionist and a professor at the Royal Conservatoire of Antwerp, right? You
Yeah.
teach.
Yes.
Nice
Maybe
to tell you.
the more precisely is lecturer in this system.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
Yeah. But yeah, you teach there
Yeah.
frequently. Okay.
Yeah.
So, what else would you say about yourself?
Yeah. Sorry for interrupting you,
No,
because some people can be really excited about it. And
no.
so I'm a performer. I play primarily the marimba, and I'm doing research. I have a project at the Africa Museum, which is about a kind of declining xylophone called Mansa, of the Asante people in the northern region of the north of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And I also played the balafon, which is a tradition from West Africa of the Bobo and Bamana people. So, just briefly, that's
Okay.
what I do. Yeah.
So you are interested in, let's say, in different cultures, in African culture, it seems like particular in those rhythms. Can you speak
Yeah.
up those rhythms? Is it mainly polyrhythm that you are interested in?
Yeah.
What did
Yes.
it? What drove you to those? Uh,
Yes. Polyrhythm was the first reason, the idea of doing field work, learning the balafon. I think like how to learn like holistically with the masters, with oral tradition, just copying, listening. I just find this practice very interesting. At first, I focus on marimba, classical music, always
mhm.
reading scores.
Where did
So
you study your bachelor?
I did my bachelor degree in Hong Kong.
Oh, okay.
Um, so it's the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and it's kind of like applied music course. I don't know how exactly it should be called. So then I focus on percussion, and then I came to Belgium to study the marimba with Professor Ludwig Albert. And then it's in the Royal Conservatoire Antwerp. And then when I started my PhD, I focused on the balafon as a topic to see the potential connections artistically between the balafon and the marimba. So it was an artistic research project. So
That was
yeah,
the first one you did there over there in Belgium.
yeah, it was. So I did field work. I followed lessons of the
Mhm.
masters, Yusuf Keita, and his cousin Kasum Keita. Also, there are some European balafonist called Gert Kilian and Paul Nash. So I studied with all these people, and then I just compare it from my original experience as a marimbist and make this dissertation and make a concert, like more like a contemporary program to express the changes from the marimba to the balafon. So it's kind of metaphoric.
So
Yeah,
it was marimba and vibraphone.
yeah, marimba. Yeah,
Okay, I really is it was you are very mallet driven then.
yeah. I focus most of the time on the mallet percussion. Yeah, well, of course, I had to learn snare drum, timpani, or percussion instruments before I came to Belgium. Actually, even in the beginning years in Belgium, I was also learning percussion actually. But still, most of my career, my time focused on marimba and the
Okay.
balafon. Yeah,
So you would you say that you are a marimbist or a marimba specialist then? Well, that's what you've been saying pretty much, right?
yeah, indeed, in that way, yes.
I am curious about African polyrhythms. How are they? Like, what are the most common juxtapositions or layers over there?
Um, it's like an overlap of rhythms that are kind of asymmetrical in a way, like the left hand. So you imagine first like one person playing it, because normally it functions with two or more people for this kind of instrument. So they play in an ensemble. But let's just first talk about like a person with two hands. So these tradition always have like the left hand and the right hand. They have two different rhythmical patterns. They are kind of related, but for the groove, they are actually kind of asymmetrical. Well,
Mm-hmm.
it is not exactly like three against two,
Mm-hmm.
which is the case of other kind of xylophone tradition in Africa. But for the this type of the Bobo and Bamana people from Yusuf Keita, it's more like just a rhythmic groove of the left hand and the right hand. They are not the same in a way. They follow a different groups and they overlap. So and then so when you have one pattern from one person and the other person, so there will be four layers of rhythmical grooves combined. Sometimes they're similar, sometimes not. And further on, for playing this polyrhythm technique, it's very interesting. Is that we learn how to improvise. So while one hand keeping a kind of repetitive pattern, the other hand just improvise upon it. For example, it would be easier for pianists to do it, I think, because you're used to playing one harmony on the hand and a melody on the other. But for modern percussion, basically, we don't train this technique. I find it fascinating at the very beginning because it's a kind of mental process for me to try to manage two different grooves together, and then I'm able to improvise. So it could be a doctor rhythm. So how do you say like a long note and two short notes, and it's a pattern like this in the left hand, and now I can just improvise on top of it. But when it goes too complicated, I can't do. And this kind of polyrhythm layer, you can also find in actually drums playing. That kind of technique, you will find it there. Um, but for mallet percussion, we normally don't work on this technique. So
So it isn't taught at conservatoires, or you didn't learn it in Antwerp at the Royal Conservatory or at the Chinese university.
oh no, then
Yeah.
I learned it with the African masters.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
that's very cool, I will say. And
yeah,
you were speaking that it was taught in an oral way,
yeah,
mainly an
indeed,
oral
yeah.
tradition, right? Can you speak a bit more about that, or is it going to?
It's about copying, because they don't write down these music cultures, the
Okay.
musical patterns. They are not
Can I
written
have a
down.
parenthesis there about now that I remember? Like in notation, will it imply that the meters or the bars wouldn't be similar if you try to line them up? Like
It's possible that
something that
indeed the
at
bar
least
lines will be slightly shifted actually, but maybe the shift could be maybe a bit or half a bit. So indeed for my research, I would try to transcribe it with
Mhm.
these bar lines, not at the same point of the whole pattern,
Okay.
because it, because they practically has a kind of shifted position and different grooves, and it will be maybe like it's some actually some musicians do this. They just use one bar line for all the layers, but in
Mm-hmm.
my case I think it's more interesting to shift the bar lines and to recognize the patterns, to get the groove correctly, that this is more the feeling of downbeat of that pattern. Well, then for the other layer, the downbeat of the pattern is just maybe one note after. I would prefer to understand it in this way. Yeah.
That's a very good way to put it. Would you say that it could work better in spatial notation instead of traditional notation?
How do
Possibly.
you mean spatial
Spatial
notation?
notation is the notation where it doesn't time time will depend on the length of the space of the bar. It isn't subject to it
Ah,
itself. So it's
yeah,
like this will be shorter than something that a bar is that is like
yeah.
this.
That is
It's
actually
very
the case.
literal.
Yeah,
It's very a very literal type of notation. You will
yeah.
it's
I
like the
I
longer
prefer
the
that.
bar,
Yeah,
longer the time.
yeah. Yeah, to understand the patterns, I think it's important. And at the same time, I forgot to explain, next to these patterns, layers of repetition, there is a longer melody go that goes above, in a way, in my imagination. And so that this long melody is always like singable, actually. And then these melodies, if you see the whole melodic line, it's very long, and that equals maybe to four patterns, four measures of patterns. And then you can see the phrases, and that gives another groove, but they all actually in eventually work together as one piece. And indeed, so I would prefer this spatial notation to try to recognize the phrases and the patterns.
Okay, so it will be interesting working with you to see which notation then I will
Yeah.
say, but I will probably traditional, a mix of the two will work. I don't know. For
Yeah.
this type of music, um,
I
it's
have
kind of
one.
like,
I have one
yeah,
question actually.
something you go.
Adelia, how long do you how long do you like study in Africa?
Well, I went at that time. It was in 2012 already. So I went two times there. And it was actually not very long, but very intensive. It was each time was about 2 weeks, and just really stay in the group to learn like about 10 songs each trip. And afterwards, these masters they came to Europe to teach students, so I also just meet them again. So it's not that I stayed there for 2 months. I didn't do it, but because we have this ongoing contact, so I sometimes meet them and learn again and practice, and I can also send them sometimes videos or when we are in a project. So we play very intensively again 10 days together. So it is that format. It is in that format.
What was the process of learning these pieces from these masters like? Because I'm sure it was very different than your conservatory training.
Yeah, you mean the difficulties of learning with them?
Just the method of how they taught them.
Yeah, it's imitation. Like they play something, I copy. It's
Okay.
just every day like this. And for them, they will simplify the pattern. So sometimes they feel that it's not going to work. They will make it a little simpler. I don't know how exactly how to explain it. Just like reducing the notes to make the rhythm more accessible. They do it quite often. Yeah.
And over there, like how are they trained in an oral manner? But since they are young, like
Yeah.
yeah.
Over there, yes. They train like people from their kids. Yeah, they organize workshops, schools for young people to learn. And then, of course, he has some sons. They're, I don't know how exactly how old, maybe around 20 years old, and some very good players. It's in the environment that they have. They grow up with the music. They knew everything by heart. Then next to learning it really to how to play. So I observe this music environment is actually very important in this tradition. They will just all know the repertoire. They know everything when they were a kid, and then so when they learn how to play it, they just have such a great result.
So would you say it's community based then? It's community centric, community focused in a way.
I don't know is it the right way to say this, but is the music tradition is deeply integrated in their life activities. Like they play the balafon in parties, in rituals, in a lot of live events. So they listen to this balafon like just in mundane activities. So that is like how they know it so well. They don't have to write it down. It's all ingrained in the mind and body.
So
Yeah.
they would use it for religious purposes and for secular purposes. And I would guess that for music therapy too, in a way, or no, not that.
Not exactly music therapy, but more in like social events. Yeah,
Social.
like for example, birth,
uh,
death, like these important events, or somebody want to celebrate some maybe weddings, of course, and when they have just some celebrations, then they might have a balafon ensemble to perform, and they figure out the repertoire that suits the theme of the party, and what else? Like it's just very much like part of their lives, you see. And then people would dance together.
so it's not merely entertainment for them. It's kind of like it's rooted in their day
Yeah,
to day. Like it's like I don't know, like eating or something. It has to be there for
yeah,
activity.
indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
just
Ritual, yeah.
yeah part of it. Yeah, ritual. Yeah,
what would you say that that will be at the collective level, at the individual level? How do you think like people over there perceive it?
You mean perceiving, like to
Like you use
understand?
it for entertainment, like every person on their day to day, like will like personally,
Yeah.
like we listen to music personally. How would they use it personally? In a similar manner that you see around you, like for I don't know, disconnecting from other people, like in the West is like it's been used in the West for that for a couple of
Mhm.
decades now, like the headphones and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know exactly. Well,
So
they do
it's
this,
more of a social thing then.
say again.
It's more of a social thing then, not
It's
so
more a
much.
social thing, rather a social thing.
Okay.
It's for example, when the master come to Europe to perform, and he would be happy to play in a concert setting in a European concert hall. He does it also for really an audience,
Mm-hmm.
but um, primarily in the village, they would always do it like a social event. Like people would listen to it. They have like music appreciation. Like there is like the guest of the balafon. They listen and they, but then at the same time they're eating and talking. And at a certain point, when they feel that the rhythm, the speed is right, they will just all come out to dance together. Indeed, this is more like a social activity.
That's I that's very interesting. I would like to see that. Like seeing
Yeah,
that firsthand must have influenced your performance practice afterwards, right? Like
yeah.
any, for example.
What
The,
was the what was the experience of like coming in as somebody, not from that culture,
mm,
um, learning that music?
yeah, for this, it was a, I don't know. They were actually always very friendly and welcoming when I was in the village.
Okay.
They like foreigners learning their traditional instruments, their instrument. Sometimes it's a bit hard, perhaps, to really understand each other because the cultural differences, or perhaps language. Because actually, my French is not very good, and also they might speak the local languages as well. But like to be friends, I remember it was very interesting. Like just start from gesturing, uh, learning about the numbers, and singing a song with names, and that's how we hang together. And it went actually quite fine. um, no, actually nothing really particular. At first it was like strange to me because I mean it's the first time meeting completely different people. But it's like with music, with all this like social, context, it gets along and it went fine. There's nothing. Yeah,
Well, I think that you are one of the most cosmopolitan persons I know. Anyway, so because it's like you've been to many countries and lived in different places. Like you are established in Europe now, for example, right?
yeah.
Yes, it like
Hmm.
so how's life there after like doing your dissertation on this and focusing on polyrhythm on African polyrhythms? Like what have you been doing afterwards? Have you been playing concert music mainly or incorporating African music? We know what have you been up to afterwards?
Um,
What have
I
your projects been?
I did some years of freelancing, and I organized a festival called the Klinken Percussie Festival. Klinken is a Dutch word, Flemish word, means like to sound. So that's that there are more layers of meanings of this word, but so in general we take that meaning for the festival because it's for percussion, and for the first three editions we focus on world music. We formed a lineup of musicians, amateurs or professional, coming from different cultures. So like some a group of Senegalese drumming. The others may be like from a Brazilian the drum ensemble, Japanese taiko ensemble. So
Very
there are many different cultures, and very interesting is that they're all living in Belgium or in Antwerp even. And so we invite them to teach workshops and also give a concert. That was actually one of the major things I did after I graduated my PhD. And then I was still researching and playing the balafon, sometimes the marimba, because for about 10 years, I actually have a classical group, Duo Antwerp. That's how I know Junting, because he wrote a piece for this project. And so I was like playing chamber music, and my colleague is from Spain. And so I travel a lot to Spain before COVID times to perform with him, or sometimes he come to Antwerp. Then I get into COVID, and I studied one diploma for African music. And then I got very interested, and then that's how I get into the African Museum for the research project.
okay.
Yeah.
Because before you speak more on the African Museum, I think Chonting wanted to ask something, or no? You had kind of like, sorry, I cut you off. If I did cut you off, or I don't know.
No, no.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm a little bit distracted because I got a message from my kids' school. Yeah,
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Are you asking anything, or were you gonna ask anything?
I I just remembered long time ago a Chinese composer called Guo Wenjing. He came to Hong Kong, the Hong Kong Academy for Performing Arts, and he had a premiere in Hong Kong. Is a piece for like folk singer from Sichuan, because he is Sichuanese, so he had a piece for a folk singer with orchestra, and he talked about like oral tradition too.
yeah.
So that's why I find it very interesting when Adilia talk about like how the African drummers learn their like the repertoire, learn the techniques, learn the music. And one question the Chinese composer asked was whether it was professional, because pro in for West for us, because we were trained to play or study like Western classical music, we take notation, we take music sheets like for granted. But for many other cultures, notation may not be existing. They just learn by heart. But at the same time, while learning by heart, learning by listening or imitation, whatever you put it, um, actually the training is improving the memory, the 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 listening skills, the way to communicate while making music. These skills are also essential, although maybe less emphasized in our training. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And actually because I have a son, he also plays a little bit of the piano. So most of the time he also learns by imitation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So somehow, yeah, I find it very interesting when you talk about like oral tradition. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. It might be something that we miss in the classical training. And that was why I was excited about it, to just completely throw away the scores and learn like patterns that actually we I thought we needed the notation. But indeed it is is a training itself, and it's about listening. How that I can listen to rhythms that have a symmetrical groove. It grows by years. Like I can do it better and better. In the beginning, it was very difficult because I was too used to just reading. But it's so interesting to get the technique of listening how rhythmical constructions that can come together, and I can hear it now, like with a kind of transparency. That's what I told my students this afternoon. I don't know if they hear the same as me. Maybe actually they do. Sometimes perhaps it's a click, perhaps that it's suddenly you got enlightened about the technique, and then you are able to listen, and then you can copy it and you can just play it. Yeah, I think it's something really valuable, and maybe. But I think some schools, am I right? Like with the Suzuki method, is also about more the learning environment. That
I
while they learn
think
the
so.
violin, it's not just about reading, but they also have to train listening.
Mhm.
Mm.
So I guess that there are systems in the Western world to work on this. And I think learning the African balafon was just an option for me that helped me to get better at this. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's hard. I sometimes will play at my local church with people who are like garage band trained, have don't read music, um, and it's definitely a new challenge because most of the time I'm improvising off chord charts, and a lot of it is like you have to get familiar with the song, and it works, but at the same time, for me, because I'm primarily classically trained, it would be so much easier if I just was reading. I could basically just come in and sight read most of that stuff, and it would be fine.
Yeah.
So it's different, yeah.
And there is sometimes with students, they need to overcome this fear. And I don't know, maybe I was also like this when I was a student. And it's like I had experiments with this. Like about 10 years ago, we did a project of Steve Reich's drumming. And so I dared to just, record everything into videos, like put them into patterns. And there are some students got so nervous about playing without scores. I mean, like it's a minimalism piece, and you memorize the patterns. They are not like highly complex. You know what I mean? And but they got the fear, and not so there were about 10 or how many people. Yeah, let's say 9 percussionists because the rest are singers, and they got like not 9 of them made it till the end. Yeah, 2 of them really asked the conductor the score back that they have to memorize from the score. So I don't know.
I believe it is because the differences in the music making. When you talk about like African music, their music is part of some kind of like events, rituals. So
Yeah,
somehow the music itself is not the center of the events. So
yeah,
it is somehow more forgivable if you make a mistake because it is not the main focus. Maybe it is also important, but not the kind of like having a performance as like Carnegie Hall. Then you are not allowed to make too many mistakes somehow because
yeah,
yeah, this is more like in a way that okay, it has to be somehow perfect, at least
yeah,
note or rhythm. Yeah, yes,
yeah.
I
It
believe
could
so.
be coming from the pressure on stage, and then the standard of Western music is like we have to play everything correct. It's true. I think it's part of it, but perhaps it's also coming from a way of learning. Like, what is the learning process? I guess, like if you're used to it, Well, I think, I mean, I mean, I'm getting to this to the age, and like I have problems to memorize the score 100%. I have to say, like especially contemporary music, I just don't have the time, and I just put scores on stage, but but this is a different kind of music. While the learning process of learning from yourself, copying him, I feel comfortable. I mean, don't give me a score; it won't work. I don't. I will lost the feeling with the music. So I just think these two processes, score reading or completely learning from imitation, they are both important, and both interesting.
It is because it changes the perception of how we
Yeah.
compose music. Like for
Yeah.
a composer, it's very different when you are dealing with the materials themselves, like in electronic music, than when you are imagining the instruments through a score, I would say.
Yeah.
And it's
I
kind of
believe that too. Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Indeed, the perception is different. Yeah.
so yeah, perception, so the result is different, so the music itself changes. So it's like
Yeah.
yeah, it's we have to we used to have a teacher that used to say to us that the score was a fiction, pretty
Yeah.
much, that it wasn't real until it was played, until it was realized as a musical performance and a recording afterwards, of course. But like it's just an idea, a score is more of an abstraction in many ways, and
Yeah.
that's also some of contemporary music, because some yeah, well, some of it have become pretty abstract. It's kind of like harder to memorize than some tonal piece of music, for example, that you has uses some recognizable patterns in Western music, like, and
Mm.
composers, especially since the post-war, have kind of like relied less and less on patterns, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's
I think so
kind of
too.
like two different ways. Or if we rely on patterns, sometimes they are hidden, they are not so apparent.
Yeah.
Or sometimes the patterns are more abstract when you are writing, are more, so it
Yeah.
does, they don't become so apparent. It's like we have this fear of cliches and patterns since the post-war. In a way, let's say not everyone. I'm generalizing here, but I'm just
Mm.
thinking about what you said
But
and
I
how
think it's true. Yeah.
uh, so because yeah, you spoke about learning contemporary music. Have you worked with many contemporary composers?
Yes, I have some experiences. Not a lot. Uh, Mainly, sometimes we play works that they wrote, and then so it was mainly with a duo at that time. And when I was still learning, like the
Antwerp,
repertoire. Hmm.
do Antwerp?
Yes, yes. And then we worked with the Hong Kong composers at that time. They were all like premieres. And so we also commissioned actually some contemporary composers in Europe for the group. But sometimes we play repertoires that were written a few years before. And then as a marimbist, I had to learn also a lot of contemporary works. So that, yeah, but recent years is a bit less. Okay, but for also my PhD project, then I commissioned composers to write music that engaged with the techniques of playing the balafon. So yeah, different things actually. Yeah,
What techniques did you use there? Because that's an instrument I really like the vibes. It's such a dreamy instrument in a way.
mm,
Well, it can be both, but I
yeah,
kind of like that dreamy aspect of it. Whereas the marimba is more is sharper, and the attack is kind of like
Yes.
a brighter instrument, I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah. And
Whereas the vibraphone, the timbre itself kind of changes the whole music you write for them. Yeah, I
mm,
remember when I write music for percussion, the instrument itself is kind of speaks to you. Even if you use kind of like, well, most people tend to focus on the mid register to the high register of the marimba, or like the lower. I don't know
yeah.
if lower register is as explored as those other registers, or no. Is it?
The marimba, like that. Yeah, the range of the marimba is much wider than the vibraphone. So when you play the lower notes of the marimba, it gives such a warm tone,
Yeah,
and it's quite sustaining. And also, of course, the timbre, because marimba is a wood instrument. The keyboard is in wood, and then the vibraphone is metal, and vibraphone has a pedal, and so it sustains much longer. And in that case, then marimba doesn't sustain that long. You see what I'm comparing, but I think, yeah, I think it's just maybe a personal choice sometimes that I like the marimba more than the vibraphone. I don't know. I like the wooden textures of it. Yeah.
I mentioned the lower register because I really like it. I really like its timbre, and it's kind of like deep tone that it will take me a while to describe, but it's kind of like deep and kind of like very resonant and all of
Yeah.
that. But most, I think that what I wanted to mean was that when we think of the marimba, we don't think of the lower register as much. We think more
Ah,
upper registers. It's kind of
yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
not the characteristic sound that one would at least.
And
I think that coming from an orchestra point of view here, possibly.
I think for me, it's because of the impression that for some marimbas, they don't really have the lowest octave. Yeah,
Oh,
when I was a
yeah,
student,
there you
mm,
go. The,
yeah,
the five octaves,
Oh, because there's different marimbas. Yeah.
indeed, indeed.
so
And
there are
yeah, I
practical
think
reasons.
indeed it's just practical. It depends on the schools. And I think nowadays you have five octave marimbas everywhere. And I guess there would be more compositions written for this. Yeah, but I think mainly it was this when you were a student. That was mostly four octave,
four
maybe
octaves.
4.3, maybe. Yeah, yeah. It is true. It's true. But I think like in the past 10 years, most of the schools have five octave marimbas. I guess. Yeah.
I guess that's more practical to standardize it, and everybody has it, the whole range and stuff like.
Yeah. And it's even actually bigger than five octave. I think 5.5. Actually, I
Five point
don't know
five,
exactly.
5.5.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, they're yeah, indeed. There
possibly.
are bigger ones.
But I
Yeah,
will have to go to my orchestration book. Yeah, but I believe your word for. I take your
yeah.
word.
Have to check it online. I think. Wait, I just don't exactly know.
No worries. I was gonna ask about like your dissertation. You commissioned some techniques for the vibraphone. What techniques were those? Like using the bow and stuff like that, or were they more
Um,
adventurous?
that was for you mean for the PhD at that time.
Well, you
Um,
mentioned that you commissioned some vibraphone pieces with
oh
Hector
no, vibraphone no. Actually, almost no.
for
I
the mountain. Was it?
marimba. Yeah, it was all the time marimba actually.
Okay, and did they use extended techniques then on the marimba? Hard, hard,
Yeah.
like which ones?
Mm, I think
Do you remember? It's okay.
For commissioning, I think it was actually again the project with Hong Kong composers. It was like, oh yeah, there was a composer. He asked to add to attach ping pong balls, these very light ping pong balls on the mallets, and when with the movement when it hits the instrument, then these balls are clattering on the keyboard. Um, and sometimes, and of course, using the ball on the marimba that also have a very nice sound effects. And I think maybe somebody in that project asked to put aluminum foil in the keys. This is another common extended technique because it gives a buzzing sound when you play the keys. Yeah, the foil vibrates to give the sound. And what else? Um, or like you saw in the video when I play the Masuri drums,
Mhm.
I hit the rim, the edge of the keys. That's another common extended techniques. Um, there are actually many things, and it depends. Um, and one thing I did was that I play with a blindfold because the
That's
instrument. So this is not extended technique, but I play with blindfold because it was to reimagine every time when I stand next to the marimba and I don't see the marimba, or that also works with the balafon, for example. So because the instrument needs so much eye contact, you can play without looking. It's possible, but if I just stand next to the instrument, how I feel the instruments, the embodiment of it, the spatial planes of playing the keyboard, without eyesight, it's chaotic actually. Again, but it's not impossible. So that was an improvisation piece without eyesight, and to reimagine every time how I'm searching the technical perspective of playing the instrument again. So it's a kind of extended technique, but I add things on myself. And then of course with the paper, rubbing paper on the keyboard. So these are also different ways of exploring the sound. Yeah.
You speak of extended techniques like they are so common over there. It's like I don't think that they are as common over in the US, for example. But I will have to ask Megan or Shanting about it. They are closer to the scene over there. I
I
know.
agree. I mean, I think from what I've heard, I think they aren't like you do hear them, but I haven't been to Europe since before COVID, but I they were more readily programmed and I guess acceptable. I mean, I think in general, a lot of the music played in Europe is more adventurous. I mean, there are American composers doing adventurous stuff. Their just music isn't getting programmed very often.
Yeah. But that could be a concern indeed. I, yeah, to get programmed is another issue here. I think we have the same problem. It's also difficult here, actually. Um, yeah, I think it would be nice if like composers, communities can organize more projects to support contemporary music. We need the support, but on the other hand, how to reach audience? I don't know. For composers, what do you think? I think how to reach audience is always like a difficult thing to do.
Hmm.
Yeah, how to convince them that it's something interesting. Because when they hear the word contemporary, yeah, a lot of people already would run away. If
Yeah,
isn't
why
yeah.
why would you
Yeah.
say that is?
It's hard in a way, yeah. And that's the same issue in Europe sometimes, yeah.
Is it? Yeah, no, it's the same issue. It's worse in the US, I would say. They
Yeah.
are even more close. Is it because of the complexity? Is it because it's synonymous with complexity, or that it requires more from the listener, or the listener isn't used to it? It's an open question, I would guess, because as composers that are, I
Yeah.
don't know, as a composer that's
I
trying to,
wonder, like,
uh-huh.
how is contemporary music
Mm.
typically funded where you are? Is it like funded through the academia or through the government or through private?
The
Oh,
different ways, the different things, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, luckily in Europe, well, let's say Belgium, the other countries I don't know that well.
Yeah.
There are still, I think, good funding for contemporary music, but the competition is very high. And
Yeah.
every year, or every 2 to 3 years, when they change the government or the planning, then the budget always just go lower. So things are actually getting difficult. Although I heard from a colleague, indeed, they say like he compared, like he said 1 year of funding in Belgium equals to like for America, it's really like for a long time or something. He said like our funding is more is much better than in
Yeah.
America.
I mean, yeah. Most people here that I know that are doing things,
for the
it's
arts
all
and
either
the,
sponsored. Yeah, it's all sponsored either by universities or a lot of it's private funders. There's not a lot of there's very limited government
Yeah. Oh,
support.
yeah.
I've always felt like that, and that, well, the US is more conservative in general than Europe. Uh, but the world in general is kind of like, with music, it's kind of like an uphill battle, it will seem,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
in like with the audiences and with getting funds and performances and all of that. It
Mm.
seems like older styles are more in vogue and are more accepted by the masses. I
Yeah.
I would say, but it is
Yeah.
what it is, right?
Yeah.
What can you do about it? You can only
Mm.
create and try to propagate and try to create communities and stuff like
Hmm.
that. You
Yeah.
do what you can, but like,
Mm.
the culture is the culture. It goes in
Yeah.
its own way, and one has to realize that in the end, we are
Yeah.
in a niche, like, or this contemporary music thing.
Mm.
It's a niche everywhere you
Mhm.
go.
Yeah.
The
Sure.
least people is the least composers and musicians. So, but
Mm.
anyway, that doesn't matter. Uh, well,
Mm.
it does matter because I've talked about it, and one has it on its head and one has to deal with it. But yeah, moving on, let's say, uh, do you want to speak about the African Museum in Belgium? Because it seems like
Mm.
it's one of your main projects, like one of the main people
Yes.
you collaborate with, and it seemed like you were excited about it. Like, you
Yes.
mentioned it a few times. I mean,
Yeah, because it's the main job right now.
okay,
And the project is going on for a few months longer, and now we are busy with different performances and plans. Is quite a hectic moment actually. We try to do co-creation now. What I mean is to collaborate with African musicians and invite them to work with the sounds of the instruments that we recorded. The sounds like this Mansa xylophone, which is like a 10-key keyboard, which is tuned in pairs of octaves. So for 10 keys, there are 5 pairs of octave tones. And technically, the musician use 2 sticks in each hand. So always they're hitting these octave pairs together. Well, this is a music analysis that I made according to the archive recordings back in 1912 to 13. So they actually sound quite hard to listen to because of the noises of the Edison phonograph machine, just the system itself. It's an early type of recording equipment. So with this way of sounding and practice, it's actually interesting to create music, I think. And when I contacted the African musicians, they actually mostly like jazz musicians or like hip hop rapper musicians. So mainly they integrate these sound samples, just directly that we made from the xylophones, and then they make their own music. Most of the time, it's like the jamming with the original rap or integrated in the jazz improvisation. So in that way, and so about 3 weeks ago, I gave a concert. I played only 2, 3 pieces, but the rest are the commission works from the African partners. And later on in January, we will rearrange the program and use new equipment. What I mean, new is a extra idea of using a 5.1 immersive audio system. So 5.1 is actually not really like that profound, I would say, but it gives an immersive feeling of the music we have. And I also have a piece with soundscapes of the region we visited a year ago. And so then it's an installation. So we turn the program into an immersive audio installation, and then we connect some tablets, and then these tablets will have the virtual instruments of this keyboard. So we invite audience to play along with these compositions from the African partners. So you see, like it's a lot of work, and that is why it's always in my head, like, oh, what do I have to do next for the project? Um,
But you seem like your heart is on it. Like you are really enjoying it. Are you?
yes,
Like,
yes, it's actually really fun, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, it's a fun project. I think because we get to resound instruments that people have forgot about it.
uh-huh.
Then try to um, talk to the communities and people living there. Like, look, this is actually your cultural heritage, and due to colonial events and of these political situations, and your instruments happen to be declined among your communities, and they still are in the Africa Museum. So there is a kind of social impact of this project, which I think is an extension of the work of a musician, and that sometimes really like giving me the push, like to try to make it happen, like to make sure all the partners are working well. And so that there is some kind of push, I would say, indeed. Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Sounds pretty cool. I would go if I were near, like at the
Yes.
African music. I put music museum. Sorry, are
Yes.
they always there? It's kind of like, um, or is it seasonal? What
Oh
your
no, it's always there. The museum itself is always there.
what your
It's quite
installations?
interesting.
The installations
Um,
that you talked about.
the installation will happen in the last week of January,
There, okay.
and that will be in another museum in Brussels, actually.
So it's more or less like being a composer too, because a lot of composers turn into installations or even visual artists.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of
Yes.
something in between. So you have a, in that sense, a very creative mind too. Like,
Well, I need to, yeah, I need to make things possible. Indeed, uh, yeah. Although the music were actually made by the musicians, but I have to curate actually to put everything together. Yeah,
okay, okay.
indeed.
So, do you guys have any more questions for Adilia? You've worked with. It seems like you work with AI, but do you want to talk about it, or are you not so into it right now?
Yeah, it's a bit. Again, as a musician, I'm also doing a bit of like curating work, but this is a research project that I got the idea of working further on the balafon on this compositional structure that I try to explain, like what is polyrhythm,
Mm-hmm.
and so I got the idea of working with AI because basically it's about finding relationships between the harmonies or the rhythmic the patterns and so I got the help from my colleagues at the conservatory and then we so I collaborate with the AI engineer, so he will formulate a system that we can help to analyze the balafon polyrhythmic patterns. So I can't do coding, but I just see the potentials of having AI to assist our analysis. And maybe ultimately, I hope we can use this program. And if you play a simple melody, and the system will generate some kind of balafon polyrhythm conceptually for you, and to make some kind of hybrid balafon piece.
That's
So
a
that
great
is
idea. Sounds like a great project indeed. It's kind of like, uh, I it's kind of, I haven't heard about it. Uh,
no, yeah.
have any models for it? Do you have? Do you? Do you have any models for it?
Because the engineer he make his own models. But I wait because we are in the very beginning of a project, and he's trying to explain to me what models he gonna use, and the one he used is called idioms.
Mm-hmm.
I think he kind of taking reference from a project in Nova Scotia, the folk music in there, and so he is still explaining me how the system works. Um, so I think he adapts the system for this project. It's called idioms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No,
But
it's
he,
that.
yeah, he and my colleagues, the guy just came by. They use Somax that's developed with Ecamm
Uh-huh.
and Somax. And before they use also Rave.
But
Yeah.
is it no? It's software that was developed at IRCAM. No, no
Yeah,
collaboration over there, or have you?
I think they told me it is a development in Ecamm. That's
Oh,
called Somax. Yeah. And yeah, Rave, I don't know where it came from. Yeah.
well, I'm just asking, kind of like the mechanics behind the magic. I wouldn't understand them completely anyway, but I'm looking forward to the. I'm looking forward to the result because I haven't really heard of a similar project. Maybe there's some out there, but I haven't heard about it. So,
Yeah,
do
we'll
you
be
plan
glad
to
to
work
play
on it?
from.
Like, you are working on it right now, and you are going to work on it. Like, how do you visualize it, like developing and all of that?
Yeah, I hope we can improve the analysis of the polyrhythms. That it, yeah, provides us a new tool. But it's an experimentation, so yeah, I hope like we can know better like between these layers, how are they constructed, how are they related, and then how are they not, and then eventually the model can generate and to help more people to get to know the balafon,
Hmm.
like the first step, like, and then they got interested and they will go to learn with the masters, and then the balafon will continue and spread, more people know about this music.
Have you taught any of the techniques or the music that you learned in Africa, or is it something that um, you don't feel comfortable teaching because yeah, have you taught any of those to people in Europe?
um I did some workshops, but I didn't really push that to organize workshops or to really get students of balafon. Like in end of this month, then Yusuf will come to teach the students here a workshop of 1 week. I don't know. I just don't really feel like teaching the battle for myself. I don't know why. Yeah, I think maybe I always feel like there's still things to learn before I teach this instrument. I don't know.
Well, it sounds like you're also very busy with all sorts of projects too.
That's also true. There are things going on. I think that's why. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
very cool.
I think that it's been a very enlightening conversation in many aspects. Do you
thank you.
guys want to ask anything else? Like I've asked most of the question. Like so, like my curiosities are amended. Let's say. Or do you want to say anything in closing?
I would say I've got a lot of food for thoughts because when you talk about like analyzing the polyrhythm, I would say um, it is it is really like a Western way or scientific way to study ethnomusicology. Yeah, when we try to deepen our understanding of a certain kind of music that is unfamiliar for classically trained musicians.
Mm,
But very interesting that at the beginning of the conversation we talk about the oral tradition.
mm,
Yeah, there there are always some people who would like to argue that okay, this kind of oral tradition is also part of the music itself.
mm,
Yeah, but we also need to understand if we may think in a way that some artists are associated with a certain kind of music, but they actually don't own the music. We
mm,
and actually maybe it's more healthy for
mm,
the ecosystem if we find a way to deepen the understanding to make it slightly more scientific so that it is easier to educate more people to learn that. Yeah.
yeah. I
Because,
think it's an idea. Yeah.
yeah, my teacher, my composition teacher at the Hong Kong Academy for Performing Arts, he also advocates the very spiritual communication between musicians and the composers. But
Mm,
I I'm not saying that he's wrong, but it is also a question: how can we communicate with people who don't have the same spiritual communication or don't have the same personal interaction?
mm,
We try to communicate, try to preserve the music in
mm,
some way, and that's
Yeah.
actually the value of the notation or documentation or whatever field recording you get to record in let's say Congo or whatever African countries.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because like oral tradition and improvisation have really fallen out of Western music culture, but they're part of the origins of that culture too. I mean,
Yes.
um, yeah, so it's interesting. I don't know exactly when it's it kind of fell behind.
Yeah.
I believe
Yeah,
I believe these two things can can coexist undoubtedly. Where if even if we talk about like Western classical music, uh, like 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, the Chopin piano competition,
Mm,
one of the jury members commented that some of the participants forgot how the Chopin's music should sound.
mm,
And because there is also a tradition or a lineage of how the music was played. For example, in the Polonaise, the 16th notes
mm,
maybe sped up, maybe sped up a bit, maybe accelerated a little bit to somewhat like a like the traditional Polonaise. This kind of like
yes.
rubato, these kind of things also relies on the oral tradition, also rely on the lineage of all the teachers, students, masters, something like that. Yeah,
Mm,
I think we also want that too. In even in our contemporary music, somehow we as the composer we may be very concerned about whether the music is accurately performed.
yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but it is also because we don't really have this kind of tradition, right?
Mm,
Yeah, so we try to write out everything. Maybe sometimes we are just trying to write out a Cenerando in our way, right?
yeah.
We're just trying to create the same offbeat feeling.
Yeah, but that's creativity. It shouldn't be always standardized. I mean, you use a standardized tool to express it, but when your creativity go beyond it, how do you notate it? Then you find your own way. And if you don't express it, explain it verbally well enough, then it becomes a whole tradition. So I mean, in the end, the oral tradition actually exists. It's not something that, like in Western music, it disappeared. It is I think more is maybe the learning process that with notes or without notes. And it's talking about the expressions or the musical pitches that you have to transmit here.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me as a composer, like like a lot of composers, I do want to control things.
Mm,
I have to let myself kind of lead back, but I also am extremely fascinated by the energy in music that is kind of more free, that is like taught like orally. Um, it's not the same as the energy when people are just reading a
mm.
score.
Yeah, it's different indeed. I understand you for that.
Yeah,
And sometimes you write it down because you first listen, you hear something, you put it on paper, but still the process first come from what you hear. And then I think it's not correct that it's bounded by notation, but notation is a very useful tool and
True.
you can develop and you can
hmm,
go further with your imagination. So,
yeah.
hmm. And
Do any
well,
of those older those the African traditions, do any of them use like uh recordings as like a tool to document commonly, or
can you say again?
do any of those African traditions, do any of them use like any sort of recording, whether video or
We do.
oral?
They I
Yeah,
don't really think they do that. But for us, when I learn it, for my fellow also, we record it because that is to
yeah,
remind us what we have learned, and we don't have the same memory like they do for traditional music. So it proved to be very useful. So I just come back to it. Um,
And is like music and dance always integrated in those cultures too, or are they separate?
Diaspora, I think it is kind of separate because I know some diaspora musician or people they actually have no clue about traditional music because it's like yeah they grew up in Europe, and when I present them the balafon the first time with or actually yeah African audience, I think 80% of 90% of them they were actually surprised by the balafon. Yeah,
That's
and
very
and
cool.
and then it's like 3 years later, I get to meet one person of the audience, and she was still amazed about it. It's interesting to see her after 3 years, but it really surprised me that she was like still so moved by the sound of the instrument, and yeah, that's actually interesting for me.
Yeah, it's very
Yes,
cool.
it really was. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, how can people reach you if they are in Belgium and want to visit the African Museum or want to get in contact with the Royal Conservatoire or with you through your website?
Yeah, normally via website, I think. Yeah,
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 adilia.com.
yeah. Because I put a contact list, or I have my email address over there. Yeah,
Okay, okay. So I think
Awesome.
we're good.
yeah,
Thanks for
Thank you
the
so
Thank you
much.
so
conversation.
much for joining us.
yeah.
Yes,
And thanks for inviting. And yeah, this is a nice discussion. I mean, I can tell about myself. I mean, this
yeah,
is a valuable opportunity. I mean, it's actually nice to do.
definitely.
And also nice to get to know you, your views on oral tradition and African music, and it's very nice. Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you
Our
for
pleasure.
the
Yeah,
conversation. So, well, this is
yeah,
it. Take
yeah.
care
Hopefully, meet you
Yeah.
in Europe or America, like
for Europe.
Yes.
Hong Kong. I don't know.
Yeah.